Well, just starting talking about the subjects that E-LAi-sa's brought up in this recent update really just opened up streams of many different other subjects and elements that have gone into this whole mission. The Crystal River mission and the Emerald Covenant, like starting from the first seeding, because it's really bringing everything home in so many words. But and hopefully it really is, for a lot of us, as many as possible. But yeah, it's almost like I get a visual of one, two, three, all three seedings in a bubble, just in this whole in the same context. And now this is kind of the wrap up. So you have to really stand back and look at the full history now to see what's led up to this final drama. And or I guess that would be final drama. Three finals. And this is the final. So my brain was just all over the place talking on subjects, so went on multiple tangents and went into the group. Also went into a subject that I was intending to bring up, but I felt in the first video, if people resonated with that, maybe they could just move on to this video if they want to hear more expansion. It didn't seem particularly relevant to a summary of the Kddl 3 update, and I wanted to keep focus on that and keep relevance to that video to people that just wanted to hear a summary on that, not go too far into these tangents. So these are all the tangent excerpts, outtakes, kind of. And the subject in particular I wanted to go into that I wanted to keep separate was the credits of the Mahadra Drana, where that code came from, who pulled that code, according to Ashiana, her own words, who pulled the code, and just kind of big surprise for me not seeing the credits on there. I do understand there's court agreements that need to be upheld and people's names not mentioned, and maybe I'm in a position to kind of fill in the gaps with that so that people do know who the individual was that brought forth that code. So, and there's also an excerpt I'm going to put in this video for people to see exactly when and where. I'm going to put the workshop name and the year and everything, where the excerpt's taken from. It's from Dance for Joy Part 2. And that is where the Mahadra Drana code was originally presented. So, hope everybody understands where I'm coming from in this. It's in the spirit of transparency. It's in the spirit of Christic respect and love for quoting sources and origins of material and codes. And that's what I believe in. So, thank you for listening. I think the subjects of the two seedings before us would be excellent subject matters to go into further, for us to delve into and kind of prepare for what may possibly be in store for us coming up. So, and we'll probably do that in the Real Earth Histories group, which seems to really be expanding right now. I've pointed a lot of newcomers there. I believe in that group for a good starting place. So if you know people that are just starting, that group has I was just doing it instinctively before, but the more I look at it, it's like it's got the Real Earth Histories video that was on there way back in the day, like 2009, when I first had come in, and it kept getting taken down, and people believed in it so much that they kept putting it back up, and I was one of those people. I recorded it and preserved it and made my own 4 parts to it, And because I used to stay up late at night listening to it every single night, drifting off to sleep, hearing her talk about the Eye of Metatron and Giovanni and the Fall and just all these incredible subjects. I was like, oh my God, what is she talking about? And I had tears in my eyes, and I was feeling it, you know, I was feeling the tones coming out of her mouth. I didn't understand a word she was saying. Didn't know it, and never heard any of those names, you know, but some part of me had heard those names. Some part of me did know what she was saying, and it affected me deeply. And I believe that I experienced cellular memory that was coming on during those tears and emotions. And I also, in the same spirit of paying it forward, believe that newcomers can potentially have that same experience from listening to those compilation, somebody that compiled all of these back-to-back histories in those videos, that people can have potentially that same experience and get their cellular memory online, which is essential if you're coming into this and kind of in puzzle mode, you know, in frantic mode, mental mode, overload mode. Just slow down. Well, sometimes you need to put it all down. Don't even listen to histories. Don't do nothing. Just stop. Walk away for a little bit, or else it's going to do more harm than good, and you're never going to want to come back, probably. But if you're just like, where do I start? Where do I start? I need a step list of things. That's where I always point people to, is the real earth histories. Just kind of take a chill pill, chillax, and put on some histories and just ease into it. Establish your own solid memories on some level. I'm not saying coherently on this conscious 3D level that you're going to remember, like I didn't remember, but things started streaming. They started coming in dream time, and started piecing some things together, you know? And it helped. It also helped to hear E-LAi-sa's own story, Ashiana back then, Anna Hayes even, I think, one of the workshops. Angelic Realities, Architects of Light, the Indigo Children. Those are like the only ones that I've located, unless there might be some other ones that I've missed or don't recall right now, where she is talking about her personal story. And for me, that was just like, I mean, that was no-brainer. Okay, well, how did this even come to be? Like, it talks about it in Voyagers 2, but she goes into really good detail, and even newspaper articles and eyewitness accounts of the orbs in the movie theater and the lights by her house and the crafts appearing in different things. Really, really good detail that was helped me to get past a potential mental block which is almost impossible to think of now, that one person could come up with all this, or maybe it was a group of writers, or our brains go into all kinds of places. We want to rationalize, like, no, how could this be? How could we be betrayed to that level? And that's trauma, and everybody's got it. So let's not pretend that we don't do that sometimes. Our brains do that. So, and it is hard to put together. Of course it is. It's hard for people to put all this together, and they need more answers, and that's what that group is designed for. I've been airing the actual workshops of where those excerpts were taken from, the Real Earth Histories videos, which was mainly, some of it was Templars, some of it was Dance For series, and yeah, just so people have the full everything, in full context where it came from. I've also been pointing people to the Kddl teachings, the Kddl teachings group on Facebook, and we have one on Telegram too. And I put huge disclaimers on there. I even made a folder like the one thing daily, and connect with your plasmas, do the butterfly flows, like anything I could think of, floating Buddhas, and protect yourself, By all means, protect yourself, because it's still flying around. Density 2 is still not cleared, and some of the stuff is connecting you with the Amaria buffer and flame body, which is way up there, and we haven't cleared these things yet. So We just got to be careful. And that's been the number one question I've been getting lately from newcomers is like, I feel like I'm late, you know? Follow the white rabbit stuff, but you can't be late on this type of work. You are right on time. It's soul-guided work. And I've made videos talking about Voyagers 2, how it came in my life 3 times and left. I didn't even do the Maharic Shield. I mean, you're going to be drawn to doing what you need to do when you need to do it, when you're on the right path, when you're on the healing path that's going to take you to completing yourself more. You know, you'll start to gain more evidence of that as you go, and there's no denying it, and you start to trust more. Start to trust your own line and build your own line. And it takes time. You know, I'm not pretending that I have mine fully developed or anything like that. I've made a lot of screw-ups and probably some other recent screw-ups, I don't know, you know, but I always speak my truth, and I stand by what I say as much as possible, but I'm also open to being wrong and admitting that I'm wrong and holding accountability for being wrong. And I think that has everything to do with frequency. And I'm going to go into this also. She left off with talking about the credits on the Mahajadrana, and I did not see a particular name on there that I felt was extremely important for the name to be on there when it comes to credits of that code, because right before she came on, we've been streaming the Dance for Joy Part 2, which was the original Mahajadrana activation, external level, way back in the day, 2003, in, Spain? I forget what part of Spain they were at, but yeah, it was obviously major activation. That Mahajadrana contains all the Vecca codes. It's packed, you know, it's got so much that's in it. And just overheard her saying that, and very clearly going into detail about the contracts with ex-Speaker 2 that he held, in the type of contract that he had in bringing that code in, and her words that E-LAi-sa pulled the code. And, you know, I'm not trying to stir stuff up, but credit where credit's due, by all means. You know, that was a masterpiece. That was a work of art. And I just believe that there should be some level of respect for that. You know, even our fallen ones, the ones that may have got consumed, does not depreciate the work that they did, that they have given to us. And you know, we've all got some track records here and there, whether this life or the last one or the next one or whatever. We've all been on all different sides. And I don't think it's really fair to hyper-focus on one side and just say, oh, well, he's bad because he fell this time and that's it, he's done. Even if somebody's fate was to fall, at this point, they still got redemption, right? That's what's being taught. So why are we going into this place of like, this person is fatality and they're dead to us, dead to our shield? I don't buy it. I don't believe it. And I don't think that there's much integrity in doing that and not giving credit. As a matter of fact, it's the absolute reverse of what this work stands for and what she used to talk about in the early days, you know, what people were doing, and what I've recently talked about with Lisa Renee and the plagiarism. It's just going in a direction that we don't want to go in my opinion. And I do get vocal about that when it comes to things like that. Like, come on, you gotta cite your sources here. And E-LAi-sa pulled the Mahajadrana. So I'm putting that out there. And that's not me saying it. That's Ashiana. It's Ashiana's words in the workshop, and there'll be an excerpt that I'll be making of that. I just reviewed it last night just to make sure I was hearing it correctly, and actually she added to that, specifically talking about his role taking in the electricals because she's female magnetic, and that he gets more of the symbols and the geometries and the intricacies, whereas she brings in like the paragraphs, the text and the information and things like that. She was very clear in saying that he pulled that code. And you can see him sitting there as she's talking in some of the Dance for Freedom workshops, Dance for series, and he's drawing and he's pulling a flame body code. You know, he was a draftsman, and he knew CAD, he knew the computer art stuff of how to relay those codes onto graphic design, which was a blessing for all of us. And I'm not going to sit here and play along and pretend that it wasn't. So people can take that for what they want to. If you want to call that stirring the shit pot or whatever, that's go right ahead. You think I haven't heard that before? Heard that from day one, for even having the gall to start a Facebook group. Oh my God. For people to talk and share and express without feeling suffocated in this group, in our chaos group community. So, you know, this is me speaking my mind, speaking up. This is something I've had some issues with for a while. Kind of scraped the tip part of an iceberg with the testimonial that I made about Mark Gibbs recently, but that's not the half of it. Attitude is everything when it comes to the frequency, the type of frequency work that we're trying to do right now with the plasmas, because it's like beyond our encryption level of external here. This is going into other places, run really deep, and I think that we need to start. I'll speak for myself. Like I'm trying to be more diligent in maintaining at least a clearer view of the path of impeccability. I'm not saying I'm on it. I'm not saying I've come close to achieving it, but I'm looking at it. And impeccability is impeccability, you know, with everything. And we just can't pretend that it isn't when there's things. And the more that we do, the more that it starts to stand out, I've noticed in my own healing. Like I try to pretend something isn't there, or say, oh, well, that's not that big a deal. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I love E-LAi-sa. I love this work. I love what that woman has done for us. I am extremely grateful and in gratitude. And I do all these projects and groups in that spirit and no other spirit. It's in the spirit of gratitude, paying it forward what was given to me early on by some people that are not with us anymore, but are with me even more in spirit now in the projects that I do. And that's what I present to people coming in. It's it's kind of a lighthouse amidst all the dramas and storms and stuff. But I have this channel there's techniques mixed on the channel, as well as my own views. And I don't mix my views particularly in the groups, in the study groups, like Skypod, Newcomers. Those are very like solemn space groups, like libraries, and the Freedom Teaching groups are the same. Don't let people just post news articles and stuff. We started a news group for that. But like Chaos Perspectives, which used to be Chaos Reality Check, and Chaos Reality Talks, Chaos Comparative Science, even some things that are more on a math level with codes, ratios, and stuff. But Reality Talks and Perspectives, definitely, I will share in that space my own observations. And for me, this is unless there's something that I'm missing here, unless I just don't see it. If it's the greater good to say to censor out somebody and what they did and their part in this work, and we just don't understand the dynamics of that, and it's like he's broadcasting reversals, and we got to cover this up. Well, even Hitler was broadcasting reversals, and I mean, what the hell how would our psychology change if we didn't know the story of Hitler right now as children? You know what they do in Germany? You know what they did after the war in Germany? When it came to the education system and the approach that they had with that, I believe in that. I absolutely believe in that, and I think it's not doing any favors to try to delete people out of history type stuff. I just really do not resonate with that. That's been our downfall, as a matter of fact. It's been a huge downfall, according to these teachings and our real earth histories. Things have been deleted and edited, so I don't like the frequency of that, participation of that. Don't participate in that personally. And I do understand that there's court arrangements, court agreements that are in place for people to not mention other people's names, not their faces, not their voice, etc. I totally get that. But to kind of stamp a name over something and take full credit of it is the exact opposite of what has been taught in these teachings. So yeah, I get a little fiery about it, to see that. And that was one thing on the update that I saw. So, of course, Sue Clemson deserves all the credits, and that credit was given to her. Our beloved Sue did all the color codes, color artwork, and the codes and everything. She had the contract for that. But the actual codes and the intricacies of that master code, the Well of Dreams code, Ark. I think it was linked to the Ark, the Covenant, Iveka codes, and all of it. It's just, that thing is packed. And it took a lot of work to do that. So I'm done with my spiel on that. That's all I got to say on it. And I'll just expand right here on the court agreements. There is absolute accountability across the board for all parties that are involved in a courtroom that have lawsuits against each other. It's not this. My mom used to say it takes two to tango, right? Like in relationship affairs and stuff, and not to get in the middle of it. He said, she said. That gets a little hairy and fuzzy, and you can't really see where the lines get kind of fuzzy. When there's 2, 3, 4 parties, however many parties were involved in these court arrangements, there is accountability due from all parties involved. And I'm not sure if that doesn't work that way in Christic society. Is there like exceptions in that? I'm open to looking at that and seeing that, but in our reality, there is good elements in our justice system that carries forth the law and real justice. There is an element of that is still intact. And even when it comes to things like this, with the copyrights and masters and something as vast as this work is, there has had to have been agreements from all sides, from both sides on this, to make those arrangements of people being excluded. There was a post a while back that I made years back when I was talking to E-LAi-sa, Michael Dean, ex-Speaker 2, and tagged some other people in the post, and it led into this thread of like, well, was this a one-sided thing? Was this something they pushed you to have yourself removed? And he did clarify, make it very clear that no, this was something that he had definitely arranged, like him and the other parties involved that were to be edited from the teachings, from the freedom teachings, that was something that they wanted. And at least that's what he said publicly, on the Facebook record, on that post, and in the comments thread. So I don't think it was something that he was bullied into or anything like that. But with everything as it stands, this is another thing that's going to continue to come up, is that the freedom teachings will be edited when they are presented from E-LAi-sa, and that's something that's really an elephant in the living room for me. That's why I've kind of taken it upon myself to release them. They haven't been available for sale for how many years? Since 2012. So we're at 10 years, and it's always in the back of my head knowing that when they are released, we're going to have It's going to be beautiful. I can see it, how it's going to interconnect with the plasmas and our plasma anatomy, and they're probably doing a fantastic job with that. But in my humble opinion, as a truth seeker, I would much rather have the full spectrum of who was there at the activations, who participated, who was part of bringing forth this work as it stands today. That is something valid in my eyes and in my humble opinion. But I will be making an excerpt and putting that out there for people to get their direct lines straight of where things come from. Yeah. So other than that, we've got a technique activation that's supposed to happen on the 12th. She mentioned the 12th or the 15th, so that's coming up really soon. So people still have time to purchase Kddl 3 and pick up on that. And I will not be putting that up for free anywhere. That's people need to, if you care enough about it and you want to get it, then you need to check the KS sponsorship page. If you need help financially or something, that's what that group was for. Somebody sponsored me way back in the day for Sliders 1, you know, when the Azurite Press was still going. They had a sponsorship program, and that's exactly what the spirit of that group is in, is paying that forward, that same thing that was given to me. So, and there was somebody that already got sponsored, and she was just really happy about that, you know. So try to keep that spirit going, and let's utilize that page if you need it. I know there's people that are in financial situations and things. My story with the work, I've been wanting to talk about this for a while too, be more transparent about where I get the material from. I've been doing this like since I first came in. I started making excerpts. I started making timestamps. Like, oh shit, that's a good one. People need to hear that. Oh, listen to that. That's another good one. And I've got notepads going back to 2010 when I first came in. 2009, 2010. And I just kicked onto autopilot with wanting to pay back what level of healing. This work has literally answered prayers for me. Literally. When that Camelot interview popped up, I was on the edge of my seat waiting for her to come on. I was watching every single interview that Carrie Cassidy did on her channel. I was up to date on the upcoming ones, and when I saw the upcoming Ashiana Dean, I nearly fell to the floor. I could not believe it because of my experience that had happened with Voyagers 2 already. Years ago, back in 2002, 2003, and in Sedona, right after Cosmic Clock, and when they were out there, you know, doing grid work around that area, I believe. And my Syrian bead experience, the whole bit, you know, I've lived this work, and I was at a very dark night of the soul time in my life, on my knees, crippled, praying, and it wasn't like a week, I would say less than a month, maybe within a couple months, I don't know, but we were living in the same apartment. We never stayed in the same apartment for that long back then, before we got to move to Arvada. So it was a very short time frame of those prayers, and when she popped on, and I know that the Guardians heard me on that, and I know that they heard many other people that were needing to have access to this work on that level of public domain, which it was not before. There was little interviews here and there on radio shows, and there just wasn't anything. There wasn't enough. You know, I get it that she's not a public speaker. She didn't like doing the speaking thing, and that's why she didn't finish college. I get the whole thing, like totally understand. Like, I'm a musician and I can't play in front of people, right? I freeze up. I don't like it. I don't like big crowds, and it's not something that I enjoy doing. I'd rather play in front of a camera or something just in my room. But that's how I made an entry into this group. And back then it was the KS, it was Keylontic Science E-Group on Yahoo. And they had daily digests. I mean, it was just slow-mo. It was like dial-up internet for for a group or something, you gotta wait. And I was just making all kinds of posts. They were probably sick of me, but Mac was extremely, very cordial, very nice, even though a lot of people just kind of had a reputation of being harsh, the Mac attack. I'm sorry, Mac. But she was one of the first people that I remember that actually had written me privately and just said, I enjoy your post, keep going, like you're asking good questions, and gave me some kind of encouragement. She was one of those people that did that, you know, and I really respected that. That just lit up my entire world. Lit up my entire world as a newcomer coming into this, and the experiences that I had had before, and being explained that, oh no, the Bridge Zone project didn't work, Terra fell, and catching up with all of this because I knew I was a part of that Bridge Zone project and Terra, and I lived on Terra. The people that cared enough to talk to me during that time left an impression in my life that never goes away. That'll never go away. And I remember that with every newcomer that I speak to, that it's not going to go away. Your words, however you approach them, whatever you say to them, whatever slants you're putting on the work, whatever type of personal filters and things that you're trying to overlay onto them as reality is going to stick onto them as that impression. And it may stick for years. Some of it wasn't good. Some of the people that greeted me wasn't good. And it stuck on me for years. You know, and I remember that side of it too. But getting back to the material and how I have access to like this whole digital library and stuff, like through the years, I mean, some more than others, some people shared a lot more than others. I've also got to add in a side note here regarding the hard drives that I mentioned from time to time in these videos that, hey, if anybody wants a hard drive, the material that's not out there, Freedom Teachings, just hit me up and ship it out. I'll load it up, mail it back. You pay the shipping. Not trying to sell anything, not charging you, none of that mess. That whole deal wouldn't have been possible without a woman named Maya Chai, who is not with us anymore. She's with us in spirit very strongly, though, and she's in every single one of those hard drives, actually. Just about, say, about 60 to 70% of the material on those hard drives was from that woman, that amazing woman. That I feel like I have a lot of conversations yet to be had with her that we had just started. It's one of those things where you feel somebody in spirit, you pick up where you left off, but she was just a hi-bye type of thing, and I didn't get to know her that well. Found out later that she was an amazing artist. She had a page of her artwork, and she was doing the same thing I was doing. She was asking, just simply asking around, trying to make an archive just in case. You know, I don't think there was much science back then. A lot of people knew it was really hard to access for people that were on a limited income and budgets, and we did feel that the work needed to be out there on a wider scale. And I didn't realize to what extent she had collected this amazing library that she did, and it filled in all of the gaps, all of the workshops that I did not have. I had the more recent workshops with sliders, some of the in-between ones, in between Cathara and sliders, but I did not have any of these ancient ones, ancient relic ones like the Amenti series and Templars. I didn't have all the Templars, Dance Force series, and what was it, the New York Expo ones. I think there was even one of the Ashiana Story, Architects of Light, one of those. And a mutual friend of ours contacted me after she saw the project that I was doing in preserving the Freedom Teachings, and she said, I've got something for you that Maya had put together, and that was an amazing experience. So felt like that should definitely go along inside it with the story here, you know, with how I've accumulated all this, because it wasn't just me asking. There was a whole other part of this too, of this individual that also was doing the same thing. I had no idea she was doing it to this extent. We would check in with each other periodically, and you know, she would ask me, hey, do you have this? And I would ask her, do you have this? and just briefly here and there, but I had no idea that she was doing the same exact thing that I was doing, just compiling everything, organizing, putting it together in folders, and preserving, just in that spirit of preserve. This needs to be preserved. And I'm sure there's a few other people out there too. I know James Pover had started the same thing, and now there's some newcomers even following along that same spirit and trying to preserve the actual hard copies, which I have quite a few of now at this point. It's quite a presence to have these. I almost feel like they're in a museum in future Earth somewhere, and they're connecting in a frequency here, and there's a presence. But I accumulated a lot of workshop material just by asking, and then especially after starting my projects, like the KS Reality Check, and after the split. I think I started that before the split. Skypod, which was not even my thing. I was invited to this little private circle, and they had called it Skypod, and I was like, man, people can really benefit from this in doing group technique from around the world, and we did. And there was people from India, people from Australia, people from China, Canada, UK, US, Russia, Philippines, Vietnam, Brazil, South America, everywhere, just everywhere. China. I don't think from Japan. There's never really been that many. I haven't connected with too many KSers from Japan in certain regions and areas, but it was amazing. And people showed up like every Wednesday, I think it was. I did Skypod, we did the dial-up, we did all the latest techniques, and then that's a whole nother recording. It's another story to get into. I've made a recording on how Skypod formed. It's an amazing story. But people seeing the work that I was doing and contributing and paying it forward contributed towards it. And one of the hugest contributions, I've talked about this one other time before, one of the hugest contributions was Sue Clemson. In private conversations, I couldn't get an interview with her, but she did share a lot off record that has been extremely beneficial for me. And she left me with some advice on how to do the projects and to help kind of mold them, and that really meant a lot to me. And I believe one of her friends I was talking to also had contributed and sent hard copies of the Freedom Teachings, and other people just sent files and PDFs, and Melissa Higginbottom, which was a ex-Cathara team member, or I'm not going to say ex-Cathara team leader, and taught Cathara, did presentations, had products for sale on Azurite Press, sent me crates, boxes after boxes after boxes, UPS to my door of her library, a lot of her library. And that's really what started my physical Freedom Teaching library, and I'm still building that. Still need Cathara 4 in the Amity series and some other ones. So it's been that way ever since. And being a stay-at-home dad as I was during that time in 2009, 2010, Mason had just been born in 2009, May. And I was not working. I was on welfare. I was on Social Security. I think we were still on food stamps. And, I wasn't in any position to even save. My money was going directly on rent. I wasn't in a position to buy a workshop probably, I want to say 2014. And by then there was people sharing audios directly from the workshops themselves in real time. Yeah, so while the workshops were still going on, people were sharing like in the evenings after the talks instead of the lectures, and I would just like get things in real time. And now it's basically the same, but through the course of those years, I didn't always do everything right. Like I was too public with things. Like when I first came in, I tried making a Mahart Shield video meditation like Lisa Renee did, but I wasn't trying to make it my own. I was just putting the original graphs that were used, and I don't know what I had in the description. It's been years, but I was just like, wow, this is it, and people need to hear this. And back then they were just on it. It wasn't up a few hours before I got a notification that it copyrights. And that's why I say, like, looking at comparison of between now and then, it's like night and day, because there's so many channels that are up with entire workshop series that are up on YouTube right now. And I guess it's just time, when it's time, it's time. And people do need to catch up with foundational study, because they're not going to understand a word of all this new stuff, none of it, without having a full grasp of what a cathara grid is, particle, particle, and phase logs, and phasing, and what is particle phasing, and all this fundamental basic vocabulary that's in KS that you need to be able to really ground good frequency, good solid pillar frequency with this work. So that it's time. I do feel that it is time. It's just time. I was feeling it was time before it was time. Just kind of prematurely. Also with SkyPod, sharing files, didn't understand the public settings on Facebook. Honestly, did not understand any of that. And discretion. I didn't post things on my own wall, but I did have a Dropbox of the December 2012 workshop, I believe it was, 2011, 2012, that made its rounds to the Indigo group, and somebody posted it on there and said, Chris Comstock, and it got out of my sharing circle into another circle, and that's when developed the reputation of, oh, this guy's a pirate. He's trying to just like pass this around to everybody. And maybe I was... I definitely wasn't as discreet as I could have been back then, and a little bit of zealous type energy that was happening that I've moved through. And I've also tried to help others be aware of, that are just like free for all sharing E-LAi-sa stuff right now. My groups are in private settings, the links and the information there cannot leave the group, as far as like the video streams. The files, there was a Dropbox folder that at one time contained actual manuals, E-LAi-sa manuals and stuff. Those have been deleted. The codes were recently deleted. Any like full-length streams from Kddl 3 been deleted. I've asked one person that still has the copy of the Dropbox folder to delete all of those too. So I just feel like anybody that's starting to share this right now, just discretion's got to be number one with it for sure, and respect for what's already available for sale. So that's basically, I think the people that contributed along the way is how I got all this material and how I've had access to it as I've moved along. Now, is that fair exchange on a monetary level? No, it is not. Like, I haven't paid for this material. I don't think I've paid for... Yeah, I paid for some codes, but even that I had to pay people to pay for me, because I'm blocked on E-LAi-sa to even buy any products, ironically enough, with all the work that I've done. But I'm not asking for credit or anything for it from E-LAi-sa or anything. I've given up on trying to get endorsed or go the official route, obviously, with Mark. That didn't work out well. So that's nothing that's really, there's no static with that or friction with that for me. And I'm comfortable with just like even hearing the stories and every now and then documenting the stories on KS Reality Talks so that others can hear the real life records that people are developing right now, which I believe are reaching. I'm starting to see this, and this is kind of a little theory I'm developing, that some of these stories are reaching out to the future as like these time capsules and records that are making threads of frequency to these places that we're connecting to, that some of us are beginning to connect to in our dream time, and even some in our waking state, and our visions and things that we've had, and these amazing experiences and cellular memories that have come online for some of us, vivid cellular memory stuff. I think that's going to be increasingly important. There's frequency in our records. It's a very special frequency. And I think that in this space-time here and now, with so many other types of frequencies that are happening kind of pushing against us, reversals, pushing against ascension, like, oh no, you don't want to go there, you want to, let's go over here, go this way, oh, let's take a shortcut over here. This is going to be a shorter route where you can just pay for this class here and just do the let me activate your J seals for you, or let me remove your J seals. Probably the first would be more accurate in explaining that. I think more and more our stories and just the simple element of our own stories, you know, and our records, it's going to maintain a level of frequency that we're going to want to attune to more and more and get to know each other. And like, it's that spirit of family. Like, it's in some cultures already, just awareness of that family and how important family is. I think it's going to get into a broader view as we move into the future for humanity, for the human race. You know, and we're going to want to know more each other and the stories and where we have been, where we're going. It's probably going to help us to know more of where we're going to. Yeah, so I hope that it helps to explain like a little bit of the history in some of this, like with my place in all this and my experiences and what has kind of led up to all these projects and groups and things. And it's not all kind of how it's presented by some people or how it looks on the outside. Like, there is a backstory, there is a lot to put together with how these things came to be, you know, how these groups and things came to be. So hopefully I don't have too much editing to do. I know there's some things that I do want to edit that I was talking about earlier, but not too much. I try to be transparent, but I'm understanding a lot more that, okay, transparent's good, but you gotta have discretion in there too. You know, you gotta have a taste intact and keep the frequency good with it. Also, keep it in good spirit. Like I said, I would like to do a really good summary of the previous two seedings, because that was what she started off with emphasis on, was the polarity stuff that has been experienced in the previous two seedings, and implying that we're going to be seeing that also at the end of this seeding too. There's kind of things that follow suit with this. So, but just staying out of the VV and the polarity, which is a lot easier said than done for a lot of us. And we're keyed and coded to bad frequency and bad setups and things. But the main thing is just to be aware of it and to continue being aware of it and establish a greater awareness of it. And we'll be fine, you know, we'll be fine. And that's even just holding that perspective through all this is bringing in frequency. It's doing everything the techniques are teaching you to do, and holding a good stand, having a good attitude with life and with what you have, and not so focused on what you do not have and what you wish you had, and longing for something or feeling incomplete or meeting a deadline or feeling late, you know. All those are just lack mentality and very disempowering. We have, again, the option now available to us to choose a better path for ourselves. That's a big emphasis in this update. It's not, the choice cannot be made by anybody else than ourselves. So that's where it is for all of us. That's where it's always been, but now it's like it's really, really here now. And it's going to be this way or that, and that's it, and that's the path you're going. So, and it's all up to you. So I'll leave it on that. I hope everybody has a beautiful weekend coming up, and yeah, we'll talk soon.